this is not just play cocktail party conversation, this is people's lives. Right, in Birmingham and Nashville and Cleveland, it's different than in Silicon Valley. If broad swaths of the general population of Birmingham or the city that you hail from were dying of the common cold, we would treat that as an epidemic and we would resource the hell out of it to solve it. In startup land, that's what's happening, because 90% failure rate based on the fact that founders don't know how to find product market fit is as epidemic as the common cold killing a lot of people in town, right? Like 90% failure rate, and the number one reason why companies are failing, the headline is they can't find product market fit. But first of all, like, why is it that one of the most important terms that gets shoved in your face multiple times a day, especially by we investors, isn't defined? And when it is defined, it's a subjective moving target. Like a critically important thing for you and your company so that you can enjoy the opportunity and help people create jobs, economic mobility, fuel the economy. Why is like one of the most important concepts a moving target? Imagine if on like the go-to-product side with software engineering, the concepts were moving targets constantly and nothing was specific. There was no engineering, right? That's what's happening with go-to-market. And yeah, we believe it's solvable. Why is it that every college and university in each of our towns, you can get a computer science degree, but you can't find a single credit-bearing course on entrepreneurial selling? Why is it that the #1 educator of founders in this world, accelerators, are spending your time and equity teaching you how to raise money and not make money? Where is the Ruby on Rails of go-to-market? Where is the Heroku of biz dev? Where's the GitHub of sales? And so it's no wonder that we're struggling this way. So yeah, we're preaching the gospel of go-to-market. Just very quickly, again, context setting, like this is kind of where we are, right? It's never been cheaper or easier to deploy products. There's never been more people that are talented and able to build products. And so winning in 2024, winning as we go forward, really comes down to good old-fashioned commercialization, customers, solving problems, sales, right? This is the differentiator, and we've seen it reflected in the capital markets, right? How much harder it is to raise money now. And it's not just because of some of the structural problems or interest rates or the availability of capital. It's that it is literally getting more difficult. And in this environment where, oddly enough, revenue is back in vogue, you've got to understand how to go to market with the same amount of resources and fervor and passion as you go to product. So now it's working. So this is really important as we transition. So what are we going to cover today? I'm going to define what product market fit is, so you actually have an objective, non-moving target definition to work towards. And we're going to cover the most important step, which is the first step. And we're going to go through an exercise on how do you go about doing that. But what's first and foremost, it's like product market fit is not a feeling. Never bring feelings to a data fight. It's also, by the way, not like a revenue threshold. So fellow investors, we got lazy in the last 10 years. And we said, hey, if you have $1 million of ARR and you're doing software, you're ready for your Series A. But $1 million in ARR doesn't necessarily mean you have product market fit. So, okay. Why do you tease me like this? Right? Like more than like 4 times the revenue, but does not have product market fit, because look at the other characteristics. So when you get into getting intimate with the revenue, that's where you find product market fit. Revenue can be an indicia of product market fit, and on your path to product market fit, or on the path to product market fit, revenue for all of you guys is really just a completed learning cycle. Before product market fit, you're actually not doing sales and marketing. You're doing customer development and market development. And it's really important, regardless of what you want to call it. Keep calling it sales. But what's really important is before you have product market fit, you're not actually doing sales, and there's a difference. Sales and marketing is the pursuit of revenue for the purpose of profitability. Customer and market development is the pursuit of revenue for the purpose of learning. That's because learning precedes revenue, because not all revenue is created equally. And when you have that $1 million of ARR and you start, you really start dissecting it, and you start getting intimate with it, because when it comes to product market fit, dollars are not fungible, right? And when you have contract sizes that are all over the place and different use cases and different buyer types and different sales cycles, you don't have repeatable sales motion, which means you don't have product market fit. And so revenue can be an indicator of it, but what's really important, again, to take away from this is when you're on the path to product market fit, you're looking for learning. Now, listen, we all want revenue. I'm not saying don't try to get revenue. What I'm saying is, why are you trying to, and how are you going about getting revenue? And your angle of approach is going to be different if you know the purpose of it is to learn and not necessarily just to put money in the bank. So another way to think about it is pre-product market fit, 90 cents of every dollar comes to you in value in the form of learning. And 10 cents of it is the value that's in your bank. And as you get past product market fit and as you grow, that is literally going to reverse. I hope you're all lifelong learners, so some sense of every dollar is always going to be learning. But soon it's going to be 90 cents in the bank and only 10 cents of the learning. Now, why is that really important? Well, if you believe in that worldview, then you realize that pre-product market fit, a closed lost is 90% as valuable as a closed win. Because all you're missing is the dime in your bank. If 90% of it is the learning and you're oriented in that direction, you're going to be thinking about it, you're going to be paying attention, and you're going to be pursuing it very, very differently. So with that in mind, this is critical. So this is probably, if I had to name the one thing that is the mistake that most of you are making, is we're focusing on the top of the funnel when product market fit is found at the bottom of the funnel, right? Top of the funnel is all about scale. Y'all are worried about building a marketing and sales tech stack. You're thinking about hiring SDRs. You're trying to get as many conversations as you can. You're building lists, you're buying lists. You're sending as many emails as you can to get as many at-bats as you can. And you're worried about how what you're doing now scales because you're focused on the top of the funnel. But if you haven't solved the bottom of the funnel, then you're putting a bunch of noise in the top of your funnel. So the bottom of the funnel, that's your signal. And you have to define that signal. And once you define that signal and you have a pretty good sense that it's working, and you're starting to see the sales motions work, and you're starting to see the customer ACVs about the same, and you're starting to see the pre-sale, the sale, and the post-sale processes being familiar to you, then you can start filling the top of your funnel. And that's why learning precedes revenue, because if you're focused on revenue for sales because a VC has invested in you who's never built a company, or you're putting pressure on yourself and your team because of something you heard on a TED Talk or a blog that you read, then you're pursuing sales for the purpose of sales because, listen, every dollar in the bank is the same and I just need to stack up as many dollars as I can because all of those dollars are created equally. And the reality is, and this is like the most practical, tactical thing we can get into today, the headline that 90% of the startups fail and the primary reason is because they can't find product market fit. So first of all, it's not because y'all don't care about revenue. It's not like you're literally just tinkering in a laboratory and don't care about customers. And it's actually not that you can't find product market fit if no one's told you what you're looking for and how to know when you've got it. What happens is you run out of resources because you're using your limited resources highly inefficiently. Because what happens is when you spend time fishing with a net and not a spear, you waste a lot of time. And you kill off a lot of innocent creatures in the process, right? But you're wasting so much time. What happens is each of these little decisions, by treating all of your customers as if they were the same, invites inefficiencies. And if there's one thing I know about each of you as startup founders, it's that you already don't have enough time and money to do what you need to do. And so what happens when you start inviting inefficiencies because you're treating all customers as if they're equal, and you're talking more about your product and not the customer and their needs, what happens is that inefficiency begins to metastasize, it calcifies, it creates friction, it slows you down. When you don't solve for the source of signal and you put a bunch of noise at the top of your funnel, now you have to start sifting through it. And that's highly, highly inefficient. And so what we're going to do today is cover how you stop letting that happen. So here's product market fit. Let's see if this is going to work. I'm just going to go through all these because this is really annoying. Okay. So this is the, and again, I'm going to show you the slides. You can take pictures if you want, but I'm going to give you the slides. This is the definition of product market fit, and you kind of understood it from that example I used of who has product market fit and who doesn't. If there's any golfers in the audience, I'm a lifetime bad golfer, but the analogy I always use is like, I can sometimes get on the tee box and hit it down the fairway. But like, don't ask me how I did it, and do not ask me to do it again, certainly not in a row, right? Just because I get it down the fairway sometimes, if I can't hit it down the fairway on purpose and tell you how and do it again on purpose, I don't belong hitting Pro V1s. And by the way, just to kind of carry that stupid analogy a little forward, that marketing and sales tech stack, the SDRs, all the things you're doing to scale the top of your funnel before the bottom of the funnel, for me in golf, that's like going out and getting a brand new $600 driver. My clubs are like 25 years old, and anytime I play golf with someone, they spend 5 minutes on the first tee making fun of my stupid old little driver. And they want me to use theirs. But all that stuff you're doing at the top of the funnel is the same thing that new $600 technology-driven driver is going to do for me. It's just going to help me hit my ball farther into the woods. Right? What good is that? Until I can hit it down the fairway on purpose and tell you how and do it again, I'm not ready for scale. That's product market fit, right? So narrowly defined customer use case, that's what we're going to spend most of our time together today. That is your ideal customer profile. That is your beachhead. That is literally the bedrock of the path to product market fit. It's the number one reason why founders don't find product market fit. It's the leading cause of startup demise. And you may have been fortunate and you overfunded yourself with the subsidy of venture capital, but that's just going to mask the problem for longer. Grow at all cost experiments, violently force-feeding capital down the throats of founders like they're goose to foie gras. Look where it's got us, right? Narrowly defined customer and use case. And as you're going to see today, yes, I am suggesting very strongly to you that you stop thinking about your total addressable market and start focusing on a very, very small segment of your TAM for now. where it's a source of signal and it works. And I'll tell you, if you're doing something capital efficient, like software, we rarely meet a company that can't get to break even with their ICP. And by the way, break even is nirvana. So we're going to focus today on that first one, but I want you to have the whole definition, because this is it, right? It can't just be a passing interest or a passing fancy. If you really have product market fit and you're going to take your money or someone else's money and scale, put the pedal down, it can't just be a passing fancy. So even if you got the narrowly defined customer type and use case, it's got to be solving a very real priority problem that if you disappear, your customers are going to be super upset. Customer success and value. It can't just be that your customer had so much budget they didn't really care, they were yada-yada-yadaing over the details and they just wanted to get your product in there to see what it did, or you were selling it for one purpose with a real value proposition to what it did for them. They just wanted it and discovered it for a different purpose or a different value proposition than the one you've talked about. There has to be a meeting of the minds. The customer has to be able to realize and enjoy the value that you intended to deliver with your product, not your product roadmap, with your product, and be able to express it. Because they're going to need to, either internally to make sure they keep staying as your customer, buy more of your product, or remember, these are early adopters, and if they don't climb to the top of the mountain and scream praise about you, you're not going to cross the chasm. So they have to be able to enunciate, not using professional terms, not using your terms. They have to be able to share that worldview with you and be able to express that value, and it's what you intended to offer. This is the rinse and repeat, right? Hit it down the fairway. So 3 to 5 times. There's no magic in that number. And by the way, there is no answer key. Like when your product doesn't work, you kind of know, but when you're going to market, there is no answer key. There's not a definitive what you're doing is what you should be doing or you should stop doing it. And part of what we like to do, and with this presentation and the work we do with founders, is give you more of the context and the ability to have perspective to know when you want to make the judgment call that it's time to move on along the path to product market fit. For instance, your ICP hypothesis, this seems to be working. I think right now we should focus our energy on selling to this kind of customer types and use case, which means we're not going to do these other things even if they're knocking on our door for now. And takes a lot of conviction to do that as a founder, but there's no answer key. This is not something you're going to defend in a journal of science. This is not qualitative and quantitative market research. 3 to 5 times in our experience, patterns start to emerge, and yeah, that's when you kind of get the feeling that you're onto something. It's going to be repeatable. Start putting the pedal down a little more. And of course, the final one, like at the end of the day, this has to be in pursuit of profitability. Investing in a company knowing that you're going to be able to get out before anybody realizes it's unprofitable sounds to me like a Ponzi scheme, right? And SPACs may make that highly opportunistic. We don't practice that. And so you have to be on the path to where your CAC LTV can at least be greater than 1. There has to be that opportunity. That's an objective, non-moving definition of product market fit. Again, it's not an answer key. You're not going to know for certain, but this is a hell of a lot more helpful than if you have to ask if you have it, you probably don't, which is one of the responses from a VC on Google, if you want to Google what's product market fit. So this is it, the narrowly customer type and use case. Now, let me just make this point real quickly, and then I'm going to pause to see if anybody wants to linger. This is layperson's term for ICP. Mr. or Mrs. right now. I call this person Mr. or Ms. right later, and this is Mr. wrong. Now, if I had a crystal ball and I could point to any one of you in the audience right now and you'd tell me about your company and I'd gaze into the crystal ball and I'd tell you with 100% certainty that if you sell to this type of customer type in this use case, this person who has this role, who does this thing inside of this company, inside of this industry, inside of this sector, it is going to be a more profitable opportunity. They're not going to have a lot of customer success needs. They'll tell a lot of people how great you are that are referential so they can become customers too. It's going to be a frictionless sale. It's a lot more scalable relative to other types. I'm presuming that if you believe me, you would then marshal all of your resources in favor of only selling to that customer type. Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but ideal customer profile exercise is as close as you are going to get, and it will generate, again, not with certainty, but enough data for you to build conviction to make a judgment call, right? On the journey of the entrepreneur, success and failure isn't one major decision, typically. It's not going to make or break you. It's as we all know, it's like 10,000 micro judgment calls. That's why it's hard to be a founder, especially when there is no answer key. The purpose of the ICP is Mr. or Ms. Right now. And that's important because it's different for Mr. or Ms. Right, but it's also important because it's just for now. For all you folks who have raised venture or want to raise venture, and my God, here's a VC telling me that I should only go after a super small segment. For now. See, the problem is what we do is we try to find product market fit with our TAM. We depersonalize. Look what happens in this world when we depersonalize each other. You don't think the same thing happens when you do that in business? We are not all the same. Companies don't buy shit. People do. And those people have real lives and real concerns. They have key performance indicators, and if they don't get that shit done, they are not getting promoted. They are not getting a raise. God bless, they might be fired. How they think about those things, how they prioritize them, what they're actually doing about them in their day-to-day life at their job is going to be different. They are not all created equal. And what we're saying is just on your path to product market fit, don't boil the ocean. Ironically, founders are scared to death of dying of starvation, and in the process, they die of overeating. That's what's happening. You don't go to market with a TAM because you cannot be personalized. So it's Mr. or Miss Right now for now. You're going to win the whole market. But Mr. or Miss Right, there's something going on inside your company or theirs that it's not a good fit. Are you going to brute force attack it? Do you want to spend all of your time and money marketing to someone who doesn't realize they have the problem you solve? Or would you prefer to just now sell to someone, the people who share your worldview and know you have that problem? And the path to product market fit is a bunch of like binary decision trees. It's kind of like going to the eye doctor. Is it this better or is that better? Is this better or is that better? And they kind of get down to like your prescription. And that's what we're going to do with the ICP exercise. We're going to reduce things into a series of binary decisions and do our best to sort. I just did one, and it applies to everyone. Your total addressable market is made up of people who believe they have the problem and those that don't know they have the problem. Who do you want to sell to right now? Clearly the people who have that know they have the problem. That is just one of the many decision trees that you go down, and it sounds obvious when I present it that way, like who would be doing the other thing? Look at your own activities. Like, this is what happens. This is where it begins to metastasize and calcify, and that's where it begins to bring down, because you are trying to brute force, because you're a passionate founder who believes deeply. And you're focused on what you do, but you should be focused on what you do for your customer. Let me linger here for a minute and see if there are any questions. Anything we've covered so far? Yes, sir. Yeah, just meaning it needs to be at least, you got to be on the path to greater than one. If you don't see a future where the lifetime value is more than what it costs to acquire the customer, you should find something else to do. But yes, like, and we're talking SaaS metrics, and what's good, better, best. Kind of 3 to 5, good, better, best. 3 to 1 ratio is kind of good, better, best for SaaS. Obviously, if you're colonizing a planet, it's going to be different, or curing a disease, or selling hardware. But yeah, the point was just our worldview is it's not doing anybody good to continue to raise and spend venture to acquire, where the only way to get profitability is to piss off your important partners and your customers, like Uber's done. Right? I mean, that's the only way they got to profitability. And look how long it took them, and look how much money it took. So thank you for that question. Any other? Yes, sir.
What, if any, correlation do you see among customer acquisition costs between companies that have product market fit versus ones that don't?
Wow, that's a really thoughtful question. So it's not really a correlation. So what I will say is, in the context of your ICP, you are absolutely going to see a more efficient customer acquisition process, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be less. Because if we go through this process and it turns out that your ICP is a larger company with a longer sales cycle, the sales complexity matrix, you might be farther along the sales complexity matrix, which goes from touchless online conversion, known as digital marketing or growth hacking, all the way to high-touch enterprise field sales. And there's a lot in between. And as a founder, you shouldn't care about only the cost of acquiring a customer. This is another mistake that founders make. We're only beating on the cost of customer acquisition. But if there's a more economically rational ratio between CAC and LTV, what do you care, right? And so, yes, it is absolutely, sales cycles are going to be more efficient as you find product market fit. I mean, I'm a long distance runner, but I'm not an athlete. I'm just kind of Cro-Magna, and I just go out and run. But like, I'm highly inefficient. And you compare me to someone who's an athlete and who has better form than I do, they go the distance, they do it faster, they use less energy because they're more efficient. That's what we want for you. But the ultimate answer might be a higher CAC than you even started with. Great question. Yes, sir.
Is it fair to say that founders may be... I've got a microphone.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that founders may be looking at TM instead of TAM, that we need tools to define the true total addressable market? And then if so, are there tools to help us drill down as we really want to learn who that customer is?
Yeah, another great question. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, and jump back in if I'm not, I don't think there's a difficulty nowadays with a good analysis around what your total addressable market is. I just think because of the mainstream media and Hollywood picked up on the Silicon Valley narrative, and they've romanticized it all. And they've convinced you that what you need to do is, when you sit with a capitalist, you need to wow them with the number with the largest amount of trailing zeros you can get. And to a certain extent, of course, that's true, because if you're going to raise venture, which is one form of capital, and venture is synonymous with big fast. So if you want big fast capital, then of course you got to show that. But it's like irrelevant otherwise, because if you're, just to give you an example of where we're going to go today, if your total addressable market was represented by the periodic table of elements, the work we're going to do that I'm going to show you how to do on your own is not going to result in you choosing one of those elements. It's going to result in you choosing one of the subatomic particles of one of those elements on the periodic table of elements. It won't change your TAM. It won't change the massive opportunity which you are all going to get. but you're going to get there efficiently, and you're not going to run out of time or money in the process because you're doing things to scale before you have anything scalable, right? Imagine dunking a basketball on hardcourt versus sand. I mean, this is kind of the actual work and how it comes about. So yeah, thank you. Any other, yeah?
When do you tinker with the ICP? And when do you tinker with the product, and what does that relationship
Yeah,
look
wow,
like?
another great question. I love it. So the journey of any company is product development, customer development, market development, sales, and marketing. And of course, if I had this slide, you'd see the famous up and to the right, which is nonsense, right? Up and to the right is, you know, it just doesn't work that way. When you zoom out and you get perspective, it's nonlinear and all over the map. And so, yeah, you start with product because you have to have some unit of value, but then you do customer development, but then you do product development, and then you do customer development and market development, a little product development. So this is, even with the MVP movement, you know, the lean movement, Eric Ries, that, you know, took that term from W. Edward Deming and then total quality management from World War II Japan, and seemingly invented it himself, you know, in the 90s, lean, it still over-rotates towards the minimally viable product. There's still too much P in a minimally viable product. It just needs to be a unit of value. Most founders that we're talking to, your MVP can literally be a blog post. Because you think it's going to be hard to build your product, I dare you to get a bunch of people to read your blog post, right? Like, you can try it without having to build a product. The question about tinkering with your ICP, like, that's another really great question, because that actually happens to be a real problem. Because, again, it's part of the lean movement and the lean startup canvas, which, again, I'm not trashing. I'm just saying that those things are really great for early idea stage founders. But if you're here with the product in the market, going to market, you're way past persona. Persona ain't going to do you any good. And what happens is the persona movement has taken over. And so we personify without actually creating something as in-depth as an ICP. And so when things start to go wrong, we kind of go back and look at the persona. One of the biggest mistakes the founders make is they change customer type and use case when they're mistaking cause and effect, because they haven't spent enough time and gone as deep as they need on customer type and use case. The other steps of the sales motion which follow ICP are clunky and inefficient. And so you think it's your ICP or your persona that's the problem, right? And so if you do the work and you get a good, strong hypothesis, as you start going forward and you're naturally going to hit lots of road bumps, you don't want to tinker with your ICP as readily. If you've done that work and done what we're going to show you how to do, to the point where you are a convicted founder that, like, this is right. And you obviously, in the face of new facts, you reserve the right to change your opinion. You know, I mean, my goal, I don't know about yours, my goal every day is just to be less wrong. And so, you know, that's kind of how it goes, but you really shouldn't be tinkering with it very often, because it's likely not the problem. Great, great questions. Any others before I go on? Happy to take them. Okay, there'll be other chances. And seriously, interrupt me. Okay. So this is, like, to me, one of the most important slides. Again, plain English ICP. Remember those binary decision makers? Okay, total addressable market. You're going to the total addressable market. You're not learning. You're going after revenue. You're focused on the top of the funnel. You haven't really done this. You're treating everybody as if they're the same. You've depersonalized your customer. Everybody's TAM in here includes all these people. Are you saying that in your TAM, every single person prioritizes the problem you solve the same? Every one of them has it on their annual KPI to solve. Every one of them is actively trying to solve it the most right now. The downside to not solving it is the same. We were working with a company recently on something for industrial factories. And there was, like a lot of your, probably all of your products, the beauty of it is there's a lot of customer types and use cases, and that's what makes it exciting business. But the flip side of that coin is the problem we're solving. So I'm not suggesting you want to go after something that only has one customer type and use case, especially if you want to be venture capable. What I'm saying is they're not all equal. And in this instance, an industrial factory product that had a lot of different use cases. And they had a good amount of revenue, but it was, again, the process to repeating that revenue was not smooth. And as we went through the forensics, which is what you do when you're doing an ICP analysis, you're a forensic scientist. We found that one of the use cases in the factory was someone is going to die if they don't solve this problem. Okay, well, I mean, the downside to not solving the problem does not get worse than that, right? Or here's another one that we love that's a little less extreme. And we're going to cover reasons to buy in a little bit, but like if one of the use cases of your product is helping your customer stay out of jail, right? Regulatory. If there's a regulatory schema in your city, your state, your federal that requires it, right? And what we see is a really interesting use case. I was just talking to a company 2 days ago where regulations were passed in 2010, and it wasn't until 2022 that the federal agency responsible brought their first action against. And so if I was talking to them in 2015 and we were going through the ICP and we learned that there was this regulatory framework and we stopped there, but we didn't get into the actual practical, tactical, day-to-day what it's like to be this customer in this business, in this product, in this company, in this industry, where people are like, who cares about it? Nobody's paying attention to that. We don't follow the rules and nobody cares. Versus 2022, right? Like, that's it. So this is the process that you're going through with the ICP. And it's not just theoretical. You're not just going to sit inside your co-working space or your office and dream this up. You're going to use your intelligence. You're going to use your experience. You're going to use your intellect. You're going to use your relationships. That's where hypotheses come from. So we're going to behave like a scientist. We're going to form a hypothesis before we go into the laboratory. We're not just going to throw shit in a petri dish and step back and say, oh, what happened? Right? And once we're in there, we're not looking to prove our hypothesis right. We're seeking the truth. We have to set our ego aside and just seek the truth wherever that may lead us. And so throughout this whole process, you're going to be doing, quote, sales. I mean, sales is just sales is kind of just a lagging indicator of the activities you're going to be undertaking. It becomes a fait accompli. There's just a few more words at the end of a sentence you've already started when you're doing customer development to move it into sales, right? So this is pursuing revenue, but what you're doing is trying to learn. You're trying to understand these things. And it's really hard to do that if you're using this and not these, right? There's a reason we have 2 of these and 1 of these. In sales, you need to be listening twice as much. This is what it is to be pursuing learning and not worried about forcing a sale and getting the sale and getting the revenue. Yeah, you want the revenue, but you are there to learn. Why? Because you are important and your time is important, and you also care about the person who you're meeting with and consider their time important, and you want to be respectful. And no is the second best answer, and you want to get there quickly. Okay? If I was sitting down with a good friend of mine because he reached out to me and said, Andrew, I have a problem I need your help with. And I sat down with him and just started talking about myself. I mean, that would make me a clinical psychopath. Like, I hope nobody here would do that when they sat down with a friend to help them. Just start talking about yourself. No. What is the natural thing every one of us normal, functioning, biological, carbon-based life forms would do? We would say, what's going on? What's up? And we'd start listening. And one of the reasons we would do that is because we care about the person. Another reason we would do it is because we care about ourselves and our own time. And if they start going off on something and we're like, whoa, hold on a second, I got to stop you. I don't know what made you think I was capable of helping you with that problem. I am absolutely not. You would absolutely want to get there fast for your time and theirs. And you might even say, listen, but I do have a friend of mine who actually went through something similar. With your permission, I'll see if they want to talk to you. Which is why you would do that for a customer. Hey, listen, this is not a good fit, but we have some friends over in this company, and I think you might be a good fit for them. Or if they start talking about something that you're not prepared to help with now because it's on your product development roadmap, but it's not your product, that becomes a Mr. Ms. Right, or a Mr. Ms. Right later, right? So you put them on a nurture framework, which is typically just your newsletter, and you stay top of mind so that when you get to that part of your product development roadmap, you're top of mind, still in the decision space, and you can begin that conversation again, right? But the process of going through and sitting down with a conversational framework and not shoving in the features and functions of your product down their throat in a demo, but sitting and starting to ask questions about what the situation is and what the problem is, and understanding what the implication to them as a person in that job and their company to have that problem, and what would the world be like if that problem was solved. Again, as normal functioning human beings, that's actually what we do when we're sitting down with someone we care about to help them. And in sales, Dr. Neil Rackham very famously called that the SPIN framework. And SPIN is not political spin. It's an acronym, and it stands for situation, problem, implication, needs, payoff. And there are different types of questions that represent each of those letters. And understanding how to have that conversation with the customer to learn these kinds of things. Because ultimately, you're not just looking to sell. You're going down a binary set of decision trees. And you're looking for the ideal customer profile for now, the one who shares your worldview now, the one who has the problem the most, prioritizes it the highest, and so forth and so on, right? And by the way, again, selling your product. Don't sell your product roadmap. If someone you were courting said, I really love you, you just need to change these 12 things about you, that doesn't sound like everlasting love. Well, I mean, when a customer says, listen, this is great, but I need these 4 features, why are you subjugating yourself to their priorities? That is violence. Violence comes in many forms, not just physical. That is violent. We all need to be optimizing for healthy, long-term, sustainable, nonviolent relationships, personally and in business. Why are we subjugating ourselves? This is not a good fit. This is a Mr. Wrong or a Mr. Right later. Set them aside forever or for now. Say thank you. And go on to the next conversation. And yeah, they have to be the economic buyer. So there are a set of characteristics that every one of our ICPs share in common. And there's a whole lot of characteristics that have only to do with your ICP. This is one we have in common. Economic buyer. Okay, let's do it. Binary decision tree time. 2 different kinds of customers. One of them is a complicated sale with a bunch of influencers and otherwise. And one you can get right to the economic buyer. Which one would you prefer? Obviously, just the economic buyer. But I guarantee many of you in this room are not doing that. And one of the reasons is because you haven't gone through the process and followed a conversational framework to learn. You're just selling. You got right to product features and function before you did the necessary discovery. Right? And by the way, another ICP characteristic that we all share, related to the question we had earlier about whether the cost of acquiring a customer goes down if you have your ICP. Here's a simple formula you're going to laugh at, but I meet founders every week that are making this mistake. Sales cycle cannot be longer than runway. Sounds ridiculous, right? But great like smart, thoughtful, intelligent people are making that mistake every day. Now, that's a great reason to raise capital. I've done my homework, Miss VC, and I can show you the hypothesis that I have with some initial data. And this is why, as the founder of this company, I believe that the path forward for now is a longer sales cycle, harder sale. But this is why. And if they believe you and believe in you, that's a great reason to raise money, because you need some capital to withstand that lengthy sales process. And at some point, that's going to turn. Right? The number one reason to raise capital is when you have a problem money can solve. I get pitched by founders all the time that don't have problems money can solve. If they came to me with that same conversation that I just shared, and it wasn't, here's the work I've done, here's my hypothesis, here's the initial data, here's my plan, but enterprises have a lot of money and the deals are bigger. Happens all the time. One's getting funded, one's not. So, and by the way, like, this is just some of them. There's going to be a lot of things that are like hyper specific to your customer, your company, your product, your industry, your sector. Like, and we don't even know what those are. But it's about not treating everybody as equal. And if you agree that they're not all equal, and we've already agreed in the couple examples that I've used about the binary decision tree about which one we would do, then go through the process to intentionally make those kinds of calibrations and seek out those people that share your worldview and who are the Mr. Right now. Because then it works. We've had the privilege of helping over 300 companies in 60 different rising cities across 20 different tech industries. And the results don't come from me being smarter. I promise you that. It's because there's a system, it's repeatable, and we just have a lot of sales cycles. I think the technical term is shit ton. We have a lot of cycles, so we can spot things quickly, and these patterns do emerge, and we can spot them faster than you sometimes, not because we're smarter, because we've seen them. When you go to the doctor, what happens? Like, after waiting for an hour in different waiting rooms, in 30 seconds, you say, this is what's going on, and the doctor says, I get it, you know, it's probably this, do this, get this, take this, and you'll be better. And 99% of the time it is, right? You have the start of a bad day if what you hear from your doctor is, I've never seen that before. Like, hopefully nobody's ever heard that. Look, we've never met a founder. We're like, whoa, I've never heard of that sales problem before. It's just patterns. Patterns. And you will spot the patterns. We have a lot of cycles doing this. You don't. But you can do this. This is very doable. And this is, in plain English, just what you're looking for. But again, think about if you're oriented towards this versus oriented to just selling. Think about what the last time you went on a customer call. Did you spend time ahead of time thinking about what needs to happen during the next 30 minutes or hour with this customer for it to be a valuable use of my time given everything that I have to do? Probably not. And if you thought about it, you didn't write it down. That means it's not a priority. I don't care what you call it. If you don't treat it as a priority, ain't a priority, right? When did the last time you walked in and said, okay, I've done my research about Andrew. I know all about his fund and how it operates really differently, how they're experts at sales, how they only in rising cities. I've done a bunch of research about GrowthX. I've done a bunch of research about the portfolio companies, everything. I'm selling into the VC space. And like what I know about Andrew is I think he fits like the hypothesis of this ICP. And I've got several that I'm working on. Here's the one that I think Andrew fits. And if Andrew is that person that I think and want him to be, and need him to be, if he's going to be a Mr. Right now, how does Andrew behave? And just be thoughtful and logical about it. You get to be a method actor. What would literally Andrew be doing and thinking if I was him and I was actually that person with that problem, in that, at that priority, in that job, who does it the way Andrew does it in his industry, like, how would I behave? What would be important to me, and what would I do about it? Because everything communicates. Everything communicates. You can't not communicate. Everything communicates. I was talking with the founder the other day, and I said to him kind of offhandedly, like, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if, like, the customer you're talking to is, like, hacked together a bunch of spreadsheets with an API engineer. And the guy was like, looked at me like I was reading his email over his shoulder. Like, how could you, like, you are a magician. Like, not a magician, not smarter, but again, like, if I'm a person in business and I literally have that problem that you think I have, and it really is a high priority, and if I don't solve it, it is going to be a problem for me. Like, I'm not going to just sit on my ass. I'm going to do shit about it. And by the way, let's get to another binary decision tree. 2 different types of customers in your TAM. One's sitting on their ass, and one is hacking, literally like spending their, like, up to the limit on their corporate card on solutions that aren't at all made for what they need, but it had like some functionality. They're begging their IT department for a resource. They're hiring an expensive or inexpensive carbon-based life form to do it for them. They're taking time out of someone's expensive time that has another role that's important for the company and saying, hey, can you do this for me too? Like just plain English, like, how do you live your life in that situation if you're actually that person? This is the method acting. So I knew that that had happened because it always happens. There's always the example of that. Between 2 different kind of customers, one's that's hacking to solve the problem and one's that's not, and you had the choice, which would you rather be sitting with? Clearly, the one that's hacking, because they need it more. They're communicating. They are actively looking to, and by the way, that's your competition. It ain't the other software companies that are doing the same thing you are. Like, your competition, every one of you, your number one competitor is status quo. You are competing against that, but that is a sign. And so, like, when you're sitting down with the customer, instead of getting to your demo, so like talking about the situation, the problem, the implication, and getting to that needs payoff, be really interesting to know, like, so, like what are you currently doing to solve the problem? And what's really interesting is most founders, when they hear the answer nothing, they are excited because now they can sell. They can brute force sell because this person isn't doing something and we can solve your problem. You're not doing anything because you don't work with us. You didn't buy our product. What a mistake, spending time with Mr. Right when you should be spending time with Mr. Right now. Mr. Right's going to, listen, something's going to happen, and that Mr. Right's going to wake up one day and say, shit, I really got to get crack-a-lackin' on solving this problem. And you're going to be top of mind because they've been on a newsletter. And that newsletter is not, hey, look at my product. No, it's, hey, Andrew, I read this article the other day, and it reminded me of our conversation. I thought you might find it interesting, right? That's what this is. And so everything communicates. You can find the signals. Again, nobody's going to put on their LinkedIn profile that I have this problem the worst. But people that share your worldview communicate this. People that share your worldview are like commenting on other people's articles about this subject, are speaking at conferences about how this is a problem, are posting, even if it's just a quick sentence and not a blog post, about like what's going on. How many times have you seen a post from a friend of yours on any of your social networks just saying, hey, social graph, anybody know anybody you can recommend for this? Anybody heard of this problem before? Anybody do anything about this space? Like, that happens all the time. They are communicating. So if you're doing your research at the bottom of the funnel and you're not worried about, well, Andrew, I don't have time to do that level of research on 1,000 people on my email list. Well, why do you have 1,000 people on your email list? There's only 50 people in the whole world you should be speaking to right now if you don't have product market fit. And because you're oriented towards learning, you can now do the real interesting work of sleuthing and reading their LinkedIn and reading the other things that they're putting out. And trust me, you will find in the binary decision tree among all customers, some of them have never said a word about it, and some of them have. And then when you get the conversation, right? And by the way, like, when you are working through these conversations, the early ones, you're trying to get a source of signal to figure out how at some point you can get more conversations with people who are likely sharing the worldview with this person. And so you go through these conversations professionally, you start learning things, and you take this person, Andrew Goldner, who's a noun, and you reduce me to a set of adjectives. And when you go and find another noun that shares those adjectives, it's likely, more likely than just throwing darts at a dartboard, that, oh, nice jazz music, they are also going to share your worldview. And the real good news is when that source of signal doesn't take multiple conversations. It may just be a few conversations or one conversation with one person. And the real magic occurs when there is a source of signal on the open internet about it. Like, again, them posting about a blog post or a speaking engagement or commenting on other people's. Like, this is where you can start picking up these signals, and that's a great sign that you can start scaling when you're ready efficiently. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? People are dropping like flies. Am I over time? Okay. Oh, I'm at time? Oh, she's like, shut the up. I didn't realize. Shit, that went fast. Damn. Okay, hold on a second. I talk too much. Who cares? Oh, man, that's important, but we'll have to talk about it another time. Okay, so this is it. And by the way, like, don't worry, I got something for you, but like, this is how you find your ICP. This is the path. Industry, ideal companies, research departments, influencers, business issues, and then the value you drive. Now, I would have spent more time in it had I not talked too much earlier, but here's the winner right here. Let me just get to the end. There. Grab that on the right, and that's going to be a video and a template to you actually doing your ICP.